Hey party people. Alright, so I've got two quick videos to show you. One is from Stone Rapper, and another one is a video I was watching a few days ago with Maurice Cotterell. And I wanted you to hear these because I think it's important. It's about consciousness and about the spiritual understanding and awakening that I think is the reason behind the Mandela effect. So I'm going to play these videos for you, and I'll be interrupting from time to time. So please check them out, and I'll get back with you at the end of the video. Thanks.
G'day YouTube and everyone out there. So this rant's going to be the full explanation of what the Mandela effect is, with proven at the end of it, because I'm sick of all alternating theories just going into the nomad's land with ludicrous thoughts and perspectives of what the actual reality of the Mandela effect is. So the basic line is that we as a collective wouldn't wake up. We hadn't woken up for a long time. We would not use our Christ chakra. We did not learn about the consciousness or the Eastern teachings. We just thought, yeah, bugger that, that's just spiritual crap. But the reason why the Mandela effect has happened is 100% to show that everything itself is fake. Now, we know that consciousness makes the physical reality through the vibration frequencies, like I taught before. So I'll go into this for the new ones. You have your atom that is blank before receiving any kind of frequency of consciousness energy. Then you have the somatics, you have the Schumann or human resonant frequency that is the same as the human body as to the earth itself. You have the endocrine system energies, as well as the spiritual energy vortexes of the chakra points and the aura energy fields. These are all how consciousness manifests the physical reality through vibration. Nothing exists like I explained before. So all these people that are tripping out that reality changed, reality doesn't even exist. So just get reality out of your fucking head. It doesn't even care about reality. Reality itself is just a construct, just like the movie fucking Matrix told you. See, like I taught before, everything that the Mandela effect is teaching is reverse, duality, and singularity to point to one, right? Like I pointed out before, depends become depend because it's one. Everything has become one. The Volvo sign is the male. The old Volvo sign that we all remember was the round circle with Volvo, which was the female. So now we have the Volvo sign sticking out the male symbol. So now you have the male and the female energies, which create one. All this is interpretation by the collective of the consciousness through singularities working in the manifestation of the matrix itself through the physical, trying to teach us that nothing itself is actually anything except for positive and negative energies that join together and then create the neutral energy that is the one consciousness of all and everything that is existence, which is the God. Consciousness energy creates everything. We are all a singularity of the consciousness. There's no one out there that is not a singularity of consciousness. We are all trying to experience everything at once. So the understanding of consciousness can be brought to consciousness, if you understand that. So the Mandela effect, it happened like that. So we had certain shifting particles back and forth, etc. like that, because consciousness energy is us and the particles themselves are made from consciousness energy. All you had to do was find the frequency of consciousness energy that was associated with the singularities which you needed to move the consciousness through. So all of us that have moved have been some kind of form of religious, spiritual, conspiracy, like I said before. But because of this awareness in our psyche and our own singularity of consciousness, we had a higher vibrational frequency to the rest of humanity at the time because we were becoming awakened. So the only way, what they had to do was search for the particle that would be to the right frequency of the right singularity frequency and then shift that into a multiple parallel dimension or bring something from the multiple parallel dimension, which everything works in synchronicity at that time anyway, because every multiple parallel dimension has a CERN firing up into it till it doesn't exist, and it has a D-wave firing up into it so it doesn't exist. But the reality of the whole construct of the Mandela effect is to understand that space and time and the existence of the physical reality is nothing more than an illusion. And this is what it's teaching you. It's teaching you duality to the Bible verses, duality to the car logos, duality to the movie references. Everything that has been the duality is the complete opposite to what it was before, to teach you that everything that is duality is one. That's the only understanding of the Mandela effect. There's nothing to get freaky of or anything like that. You know, it's not a scary thing. It's actually consciousness itself trying to awaken itself through the singularities inside of the actual game. So we can come to the understanding of we are quantum existence beings, that we forgot our way. We think we are physical meat bags that die and everything goes black. But the reality of is that we are consciousness singularity energies that are infinite and quantum throughout all existence. And when we actually store memory and everything like that, it goes into the consciousness. This is the reason why we shifted from our physical avatar from the Sagittarius arm to the Orion spur, and we as still have our memories from the Sagittarius arm in the Orion spur's actual avatar with the anatomy changes. It's all because everything is the singularity of energy of everything is the consciousness energy of singularities, and that's us. And we are creating the Mandela effect. We needed the Mandela effect to happen because we lost our way of understanding. We don't use the Christ chakra like I explained. We are in the Antichrist because no one understands what the actual references mean. Everything is put into reverse. The whole of the matrix has been in reverse. So now the Mandela effect is about to show you all that. Time and space itself is not what you always thought. Life is not what you always thought. Your brain is not what stores memory. Your heart is really your brain, etc. like this. This is all the understanding that is going to come from the Mandela effect. But the whole, what happened with the Mandela effect is, I'll explain it simple and shit. So, what we have a parallel reality of Sagittarius arms, frequencies, manifestation of consciousness, okay? So, we existed in a mirror set. So there was infinite parallel realities to the Sagittarius arm where we come from. And Sagittarius arm is set to its own universe. So you have the Sagittarius arm in each universe, which is a different change of the original Sagittarius arm with slight manifestations to the physical or etc. like that, which changes through each mirror. So you have that. That is what your universes are of the Sagittarius arm inside of that one multiverse. So the next multiverse itself, right down to the universe inside of that multiverse, is the Orion Spurs frequency universe. So we have now the Orion Spurs frequency with all the infinite set of mirrors, etc., all the way back and forth. And now we have changed from one multiverse universe and jumped from that out of that multiverse and been put into the next multiverse and into the starting original manifestation point of the Orion Spur frequency infinite mirrors. So that's all it is. The reason why you have merged reality is because the collective consciousness of ourselves, which are the Sagittarius arm frequency, we were at a different frequency of manifestation through consciousness, through the quantum, and because we sat at that frequency, we got moved into another collective of consciousness, and because consciousness itself as the collective manifests the physical reality, we have alternating frequencies of consciousness that we ourselves from Sagittarius arm are actually manifesting the residuals into the Orion Spur frequency of consciousness from our thought initiative programs and our memories from the Sagittarius arm. Without us have shifted, none of this stuff would be here. So this is what you have to understand. Everything is just the consciousness. So now we have merged consciousness collectives right throughout the quantum, not just now here and not just Sagittarius arm. Every single quantum reality that we existed in is now merged with the next reality that's next to it into it. So every collective is not at its original frequency. We have a duality once again to every single collective throughout the quantum. So this is the teachings of everything that the Mandela effect is trying to teach you, not about bloody fucking brainwashing and all this other crap that's getting pulled out of the fucking asses of people, but it's all about the understanding of that we are quantum energy and we are singularities of self-aware consciousness of the one pure source of all creational consciousness, and through us we manifest the physical reality the way that we want, whether it be physical or through the thought initiative program, which we can do, but we've lost our way of doing. Just like the Egyptians knew how to float stone in air by using their thought initiative program and opening up the consciousness energies, because you have to remember, when you understand that the construct is not real and nothing in the existence of physical is really real except for your avatar senses and all the fields around you that make it seem physically real to you, then anything is possible. The only reason that you don't believe it is possible is because of that word, believe, which you've been indoctrinated right through history and through your whole life to tell you that you cannot do the things that you wish you could. You cannot be superhuman. You cannot do any of this. But in reality, consciousness is telling you all the time through the collective that you can. We are lightning, we are fire, we are the sky, we are the ground, we are already everything. So what's the difference between that and us? Not a thing. It's only the understanding and belief system of what you actually think, and then you believe that you know inside of the actual matrix construct that makes it like that. So this is the understanding of what the Mandela effect is. There's no freakiness to the Mandela effect. All it is God. God working through CERN, unfortunately, which is just the see, CERN and everything like this. This is another thing as well. All of these bad has been put into the good for the simple reason that we can't have a balanced pure and we can't have a balanced bad. It has to be so we're always in the middle and we sit in harmony. CERN is now, probably they tried to do something fucked up to us, so no doubt. They actually tried to either kill us or make us all brainwashed so we thought we were in another parallel reality or something like that. And some did, some didn't, and all that. But the thing is, because the system of the consciousness works in duality, the actual, the intent of what they wanted from us to shift us or kill us or whatever they planned did not work. Instead, the awakened become more awakened, and we kept our collective conscious of the consciousness memory that we had. So now we can actually relay exactly of what is going on. We have been given a gift to teach people more about the actual reality of what everything is in the physical world. There is no physical fucking world. There is no space. There is no bloody planets. There is nothing like this. This is all a program system from inside of the matrix. That is all of it is. And the Mandela effect has been brought towards us and showing us that in our life that everything can change within a blink of an eye because everything itself is fake. Thanks.
Okay, guys, so you just listened to him speak, and I want to share this with you. Now, Maurice is an interesting guy. Maurice went down and studied the Mayan and Aztecs and wrote many books about the meaning and the understanding of the Aztecs. He figured out that the glyphs on a lot of the ancient monuments, they were three-dimensional images. And if you put them together in the correct way, you could actually see what they meant. The thing is that in order to see this, you had to have like a dualistic mirrored mind in order to be able to understand this. And it was really strange because, you know, it's almost kind of the as above, so below understanding of what we're dealing with here. So Maurice, you know, started figuring out all these cycles with the sun. He realized that, you know, for instance, like how the sun was so important to the ancients and how they understood the world in a more precise manner than what we do today. And I'm going to play this little clip right here to show you their understanding of the sun cycles and what they mean to humanity, and listen for the interesting codes that we even use today. A lot of this stuff is still in our nomenclature today. We continue to use keywords and numbers even today as just reference points. They mean they're usually covered by different meanings, and it's always something kind of, you know, evil or, you know, something on a more of a negative level. But a lot of this stuff is so interesting, and I'll leave a link in the description bar with this interview here. But let me go ahead and play this small clip and let you hear it.
Now this is the computer printout. Now, what I started to do, I'll just take the other end down at the bottom. Yes. I'll just take this one here. I started to plot them at home on a calculator. which in 1989, calculators weren't that sophisticated. They didn't have that many memories. And it took a long time. Just to get from 0 in 87-day intervals to about here, it was there. I remember it was there, exactly, which is very important, very, very important. I'd got to that far of the graph. And it'd take me 2 weekends to do that, Saturday and Sunday, just to get to there. Excuse me. It'd take me 2 weekends to get to there. So I went to the computer programmers and I said, this is taking too long. Can you write me a program? So they wrote me a program. And what they did, they plotted the position of the pole and the equator every 87 days. Then they took the pole away from the equator to get the difference. And then they plotted the Earth every 87 days. Then they took the difference between the P and the E, the pole and the equator, to the world. So we had a difference then of the magnetic field compared to the Earth. And what we found is when we plotted this, was there was an error in this. And it took me a long time to figure it out. What I found was that the sunspot cycle, this 11.5-year cycle, appeared to be made up of 3 microcycles, which lasted like 2 years each, then another 3 microcycles of sunspot activity. So we had 3, which was like 6 years, then another 6 years, which was 12 years. Now, when I looked at the end, what we find is here, we start off here with the pole, the equator, and the world all in the same position. So my question was, when does the graph show them all in the same position again? And I had to look down the graph. So I looked down the graph, and let me explain it simply. The graph here at the beginning looks like M, upside down V. So I thought, okay, if I can find that sequence again, it means we've started off again. Sure. So I looked for it along the graph. And I found that that sequence did not happen again for 187 years.
So, if you notice how certain numbers, and this is something I've been studying for years, certain numbers have dual meanings. And a lot of times when you hear the number 187, many of you guys understand that's the number for murder, you know, that the policemen use, 187. Now, isn't it ironic that sun cycles and things like that are on this cycle of 187 years, but for some reason 187 is the number they use for murder in our society. Now, if you were coming up with numbers as a police department and say you were coding them, you know, 100 is your first number, why would it take up to 87 to get to the crime of murder? I would think that murder would be one of the first ones you'd think about, you know, it might be 103 or something like that, but instead it's 187. And that's the thing about this world, guys, and the patterns that I see is that this dualistic nature, reality that we live in, is absolutely true. And just note that you'll see, and he'll tell you about some more symbolism here in a second. Here we go.
Down here. And in fact, even after 187 years, there was a slight error. And in order to get rid of the error, I had to continue the graph for 20,000 years. And what I discovered was that the magnetic field of the sun reversed every 1,366,040 days. And that number was worshipped by the Maya in Mexico.
This is the incredible number, Maurice, that has led you on a journey and leads us into the next question. This number, how many years is that exactly now?
3,740 years.
And that's known and accepted in Maine.
Yes. They had an archaeological artifact called the Sun Shield of Monte Olban, which contains that number. They buried it under a pyramid.
The first question people ask me is, how on earth does the Maya know this?
That's the first question I asked. So I went to Palenque to try to find out. I went to Palenque in Mexico and tried to figure out how these people who lived 1,250 years ago in the jungles of Mexico could possibly have known about a magnetic reversal that I took over a year to figure out using the world's largest computer.
Incredible, Maurice. Maurice, you must have been aware of this Mayan number. How did that happen? You obviously have a deep interest in history and ancient wisdom.
I was walking down the street one day in Plymouth, and I walked into a bookshop on archaeology, and I was reading about the Maya. It was quite by chance, and it said that the Maya worship this number, but nobody knows why. So once I put the two together, I realized that the Maya must have understood the sunspot cycle. They must have understood that the sun rotates every 26 days and 37 days. They must have known that the North Pole of the sun rotates every 37 days, that the equator rotates every 26 days, that the sun rotates every 365.25, that the sun's neutral sheet takes 18,169 years. And once you get your head around that, you realize that they were far more intelligent than we are today.
Incredibly advanced, Maurice. We're looking at super science. This is what you would class as a super science.
Yes.
Up the level of math, the level of engineering, the level of know-how. I mean, we're figuring this stuff out with, solar system science, which is telescopes. Maybe just lead into your research into the main prophecies, Maurice, because I want to get into some of your books. We're going to talk about future science today. That's the main book we're going to talk about. This is the crux of everything, I guess, Maurice.
Okay.
However, the main prophecies is what led you into this, what they call you as an adventure fact genre.
Yes.
Right? Which I think is a beautiful term. I think it's a wonderful term.
What I found is when I went to Palenque and looked at the Temple of Inscriptions, which is where the leader of the Maya is buried, I was able to decode several of the treasures in his tomb. And the Lord Paikal was at first, for 2 or 3 years, I couldn't get my head around it. I couldn't get my head around how they could be so advanced and we're imbeciles compared to what they are. And it was only as I started to decode these secret pictures from the artifacts, the tomb lid that covered his tomb, which is limestone, has a carving on it. The carving turned out to be the Rosetta Stone of Maya carving. Once you break that code, as long as you follow the instructions, it tells you how to break the code. Once you break the code, it shows you the secret pictures. And they use pictures because pictures are common to all people. They use pictures and numbers. If you want to leave some information behind for future generations to decode, which is what they wanted to do, because they believed in reincarnation, and they were very spiritual. This is the other half of the message they left behind. They left the science and they left the spiritual message. And what they were trying to say was, listen to us. We're more clever than you are. We're cleverer than you are. So listen to us. We're more scientific than you are. Because there's a very important story to tell about spirituality, about heaven, about hell, about purgatory, and how to get to heaven, why we're born, why we die, why this has to be. So, as I started to decode the pictures, it started to tell me that Lord Paikal was a very special person. It was not the Mayas. Lord Paikal was like Jesus. In fact, Paikal is very similar to the Catholic word Pascal, which derives from the Hebrew word Pasach, which is the Passover, which is when Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem. Now, once I started to decode all these pictures, the pictures told me what to do next. They told me to go to Egypt and look at the tomb of Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun means, translated, the living image of God, or the Son of God, because we are the living image of our parents. So here we have the Son of God in Egypt. We have Lord Paikal, the Son of God, in Mexico. We have Jesus, who walked on the water in Jerusalem. And I began to get a picture of all of these different super gods, I call them. And the pictures, as I started to decode information, started to say that all of these super gods were the same person who keeps coming back whenever materialism is rampant and spirituality decays. This is what Lord Krishna says. He was born about 1700 BC. He said, and Krishna means Christ, the anointed one. So again, all of this starts off thousands of years ago, 3,500 years ago with Lord Krishna. He reincarnated as Tutankhamun in 1350 BC. Tutankhamun reincarnated as Buddha. Buddha reincarnated as what I call the King of Hochdorf. He was the leader of the Celtic people in Germany around 500 BC. Then we have Jesus around 0, and then we have the Maya around AD 750. Excuse me, got to go back to Peru. We have Viracocha, foam of the sea, around about AD 350. There was a legend in Peru about the tall white god who walked the lands of Peru performing miracles. There were two of them. One was called Viracocha, one was called Viracocha Pachacamac, which means God of the world. And these two gods, the legend says, performed miracles, and they healed the sick with their bare hands. Now, they walked the lands of Peru, I've discovered, because I went to see their tombs in Peru and the Peruvian pyramids, around Viracocha Pachacamac AD 350 and Viracocha AD 500. And he was also the one who went to Tiwanaku in present-day Bolivia and built the big stone monuments in those parts of the world, which have been cut with like laser beams. Now, clearly, all of these guys could perform miracles. And if we just go back to Viracocha, foam of the sea, that is the Milky Ocean. And the Indians, Lord Krishna taught to the Brahmin people that heaven is a Milky Ocean. In other words, the foam of the sea. And that refers to the perfect human being, because it's only when we're in the foam of the sea that we're in contact with the four elements of earth, air, fire, water. In the foam of the sea, we have the sand beneath our feet, we have the water washing on our legs, we have the sunshine in our face, and we have the wind on our body. So we're in contact with earth, air, fire, water. If we move into the sea, we lose contact with the earth. If we move onto the land, we lose contact with the water. So the perfect human being is the foam of the sea, Viracocha, okay, the Milky Ocean. And this is why in India they worship the cow, because the cow gives milk. So they venerate the cow, and it's like a god, and they don't kill cows or anything like that. I started to put a picture of all these gods from the very beginning together, and basically what's happening is there is a God who created the universe. This is what the stories tell us, that God is electromagnetic energy, light. So they teach us in the terms of physics as well as normal pictures, that in the beginning there was God, and God sacrificed a piece of himself, and that electromagnetic energy resulted in the Big Bang. Now, it's very straightforward. Let's put some figures to the argument. Excuse me. What we're saying is, let's say in the beginning there was God who was 1,000,000 volts, positive, okay? If any number does not have a sign in front of it, then we assume it's positive, you know. So let's say God is 1,000,000 volts, which is positive. God wants to grow because God is good and God is love. So the only thing better than God is more God. But God tells us that he made man in his own image. He tells us this in the Bible. And man cannot grow beyond a certain level unless he sacrifices a piece of himself. In other words, a man can grow to 6 feet tall, but that's it. He can't grow any bigger unless he sacrifices a sperm. Then he can grow to another 6 feet tall and another 6 feet tall. In other words, he can have children. The apple tree can't grow unless it throws an apple away and the seeds fall on the ground and an apple tree grows. So the only known way of sacrifice in the universe today is through sacrifice. So if we cut a piece of ourselves off and throw a piece of ourselves away, we can grow bigger than what we are. Well, given that God made man in his own image, God's telling us that God can't grow. He can do anything he wants except grow. So God wants to grow because more God is more love and more love is more good. So the universe is more loving if God grows, but he tells us he can't grow. It's the only thing about God which we know of. One of his traits, if you like, is that he can't grow just like mankind. So he threw a piece of himself away, let's say 100,000 volts in the beginning. And that 100,000 volts, if we put it into Einstein's equation of E equals mc squared, what we get is energy, 1,000,000 volts of God. God throws away 100,000 volts across Einstein's equation. Now, the simple rule of algebra says, if something moves to the other side of the equation, it becomes negative. So, what happens is, God is 1,000,000 volts. He throws 100,000 volts away. So he finishes up 900,000 volts. He's reduced his voltage at that stage. He's grown smaller. At that stage, we've not finished yet. The minus 100,000 volts, because don't forget it crosses the equation, so we change the sign. The minus 100,000 volts goes bang, and the planets and the stars and the trees and everything we see around us begins. Then time begins. Before that, there was no such thing as time. We have night, we have day, we have hot, we have cold, because we have the physical universe. And evolution begins.
So, Maurice has a beautiful story, but I think he gets it confused with the normal scientific narrative of evolution. Not that I don't believe that there is some type of evolution out there. There is. There's definitely microevolution. And I believe that I don't think any one person has all the answers. And I'm trying to put together this video right now so you guys understand where I'm coming from. I think that there's bits and pieces out there that people have, like Maurice here has studied the ancients and understood his beautiful depiction of how the world was created by God is it resonates with me. And I would say that when you look at all of this and you think of what he's saying and related to biblical scripture, a lot of religions are sort of not telling us the truth. They're not telling us the whole picture, because I think over time it's been lost. And I think that he's right. I think that God has manifested himself in other people throughout time. And I find it interesting because, these people, these super gods, as he calls them, would make the case for that because of the incredible height of intelligence that these ancient civilizations had. And so when you look at this and you kind of, start to wrap your head around it, and then you look at the Mandela effect and you look how God can change. This is what I was talking about in my earlier video about evolution and how, it would make sense now that so many of us haven't seen so many of these creatures that we see today. And this would make the case for, how things are created and evolved here, because there are multiple realities, that God has created, because God is trying to grow. And so what that means, and the beautiful message that I'm trying to convey to you today, is that you all are all part of God. Whether you want to believe it or not, you are part of God. And the only thing that we have forgotten is how powerful we really are. When we finally start to awaken and we finally start to realize this, it's going to be the most beautiful thing you're ever going to witness. So I hope this video was educational and enlightening to you. And like I said, I will leave a link to Maurice's complete interview. I think it's important that, you see what he found out. And I believe this really, in a lot of ways, tell the story of what's happening with the Mandela effect. And I put this stuff out there because I know that so many of you are worried, just like me, about our future and what's, happening right now. And many of us are handling it pretty well. But I would say those that are new and waking up and wondering what's going on, I think this video is going to be very helpful. So I guess with that, I am going to go. But you guys have a good one, and I'll see you soon. Bye.